it's in the vast majority of lists at this point, but still very often does demand a devolving if you can stick a buff or two on there in form of Apotheosis or Power Word Fortitude, if you can generate that. But jumping into things now, once TIZS wakes up, as it looked like he was not entirely engaged with this, the start of this game, I do think that he will see he's got a pretty decent starting hand, right? Sethek plus Ogremantzer are both cards that I would honestly quite heavily consider keeping.
Certainly together it makes more sense than just Ogremantzer because, like I was saying, the Ogremantzer kind of it closes out games when you're already kind of ahead and just makes it very difficult for Mage to come back. But if they have been first to play a Pexis Blast and you have to respond with an Ogremantzer, I feel it's a lot less powerful. So Sethek gives TIZS a chance of being able to seize board control because just playing it on 2, if it's not met with something like Combustion or Brain Freeze, it threatens to be an Apotheosis target and that can snowball out of control pretty quickly.
Well, that is at least a card for Shaxy that he could do something with it, because this hand at the start was doing absolutely nothing. Does decide to spend his mana a little more efficiently, I guess, with the Netherwind, which I think is fine, because even if Apo comes down, it's of course a minion that's going to be in the way.
Right. TIZS knows, of course, that this is the Netherwind portal. Only one natural secret. Varden keeps showing up. They're everywhere. But importantly, Shaxy was saying that even if there's Apo, on average, my 4-drop will be able to get the Sethek down after the value trade to a range where the Brain Freeze can deal with it, and he will have spent his mana a little bit more efficiently. And Varden, there they are again, and Jandice can come up as well. I would think, very importantly, once turn 6 rolls around as a potential way to like fight back against Ogremantzer that doesn't use a spell.
Yeah, he's a premium, right? Just any way to get pressure on the board. Because while one Ogremantzer may have been annoying, 2 Ogremancers, or 4 heads in total, is, I think, maybe a little bit too much in the mid-game for Shaxy to deal with. So maybe, I mean, you probably just end up Apexis blasting the Ogremantzer here, but you have to consider just like Water Elemental just so that you don't proc a skeleton.
True, I am kind of looking at the Water Elemental, but it does make it such that you have floated a mana and it might be a little bit more difficult to use Apexis later on. After going down the list of 5 drops, it feels like the median attack value is 4 and health around 5, so that's just good. And there's rush outcomes as well, so I think I would have ended up on Apexis Blast there, but Shaxy is not going to take any risks here. He says that I have Jandice guaranteed next turn, so I just want to make sure I have a sticky minion for now.
Well, importantly, this is a clear on one of them, because otherwise I think this would start being way too many skeletons for Shaxy to deal with. So you just bump an Apexis, I think, and then I mean, you probably don't Brain Freeze one of the skeletons because then you just back to where you were, but you can think about targeting the Ogremantzer itself with it if you need.
True. Is it ever just Jandice if he's feeling very lucky here? Again, there's plenty of rush outcomes. There's also about 19% for taunt on a single minion. My sheet is for Apexis Blast, but Jandice is basically that, and then you have 2 chances added. For Rush, there's about 11% chance to hit one.
Oh wait, can he go? You can do a Varden clear right on one of them. You can bump in and then Varden will deal 4 damage to it.
True.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty sick, right?
Sure. Yeah. It does, I feel, on average, put less stats on his side of the board, but what this does is guarantee that, 1, the other Ogremantzer is frozen, which is a big deal in case TIZS has like another way to buff it, and 2, it also doesn't put a 2/2 on the board. So on average, this is probably just better for Shaxy because he still has mana. With the ping this turn, it's set up for Apexis ping on the next turn.
Yeah, it also means that Apexis can go face, which is, again, pretty relevant in the matchup when you do just want to eke out all the burst damage that you can. Ooh.
All kind of expensive, but I'm looking at Luminance alongside the Light Shower Elemental. he hasn't seen any devolvings yet, but the other cards just feel like they have even worse synergy and lose even harder to devolving missiles.
Okay, these are some pretty good outcomes.
Lucia.
Yeah, you're very happy to see that. You might be able to snipe off, obviously, fireballs, maybe even Mask of Cthulhu itself. Once turn 8 knocks around, it'd be a big deal.
Well, Shaxy can start with the Apexis and probably just ping it after, then trade down the 2/2/2s that'll be on the board after that. Or, okay, no spells at all.
Again, imagine, ooh.
One great outcome and one bad outcome.
Yeah, I like here that even though generally you do go for making the Twilight Runner the illusion minion in these instances, because of the fear of Condemn, I do very much like putting it on the Derailed Coaster instead, because it's really not doing that much anyway.
Hysteria as well.
True, very true.
But TIZS has none of those options, so it looks like it's already time to go digging with the Scorpid. There's a Hysteria, but he cannot get the kill on the Twilight Runner no matter what he targets.
Yeah, really annoying, because even the Xyrella wasn't there. Even if you healed your opponent, it still only would have been able to heal for 3 maximum.
Yeah. So I think what he does is just set up for a bigger Xyrella next turn. Like, he takes the Desperate Prayer, because he knows he's going to be hit in the head with the Twilight Runner.
Makes sense to me.
These are not great. No Onyx Mage Scribes discovered for TIZS.
Wow, honestly, I was going to say I liked the look of Blackwing just to have something that's very powerful and is good if you get another Apotheosis for some burst heal.
Shaxy can start with the runner to the face. He picks up Encanter's Flow. I think that's still a snap play here, even if it's a bit deep into the deck now. Misses on it. So this could be either a Mask turn or an Apexis Blast turn. I think we see what's in the Primordial Studies first.
Yeah, I was just thinking about sequencing because, you know, if you could, I would just go Brain Freeze and then Mask of Cthulhu. But with the extra 3 health in play, even that 3 damage that you lose is really annoying off of the Mask.
So there's definitely some argument for Apexis because he's saying that he still wants more minion presence rather than launching the Mask at a rather good time. But if he's doing this, it means he's not going to studies at all and he'd rather ping, or he just missed on the order. Oh, hits the Phoenix though.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably better.
Really powerful.
I mean, honestly, I was going to suggest at the end you could ping your own Anchorman there just to get yourself a card draw immediately, but I might be getting a little bit too fancy as the Phoenix is a lot better at this point.
I mean, I don't think that was unwarranted because I thought that was what he was allocating that last 2 mana for, because, like, obviously if he's going to studies, you should start with it just in case. Soul Mirror gets TIZS draws off of both the Anchorman and the Twilight Runner, actually.
Right, it's too much draw. He'd have to dump some cards first before he'd be able to get any use of it.
Yeah, maybe he would snipe the Anchorman, but he's actually just not taking the Soul Mirror, which means this is a Xyrella turn. Okay, fair enough. This is saying I don't need to draw that much with my hand if it means that you also get a draw.
I think at this point we are probably, if I had to guess, looking at Devolving plus Mask, because you know, you do kind of want to get the Fireball and the Apexis on the same turn as the Phoenix so that you get the maximum spell damage benefit from it.
The thing is, I think Shaxy really wants to get one of these Ring Fair games. Ring tosses down to get Ring Fair game because he's sorely lacking card draw at the moment, and this feels like not the greatest board to devolve, although to be fair, he has seen the double Ogremancers. Ooh, and if he rolls like that... Alright.
Yeah, I like the look of it. Again, Ring Toss, you know, we constantly have this raging debate about how good actually is Rigged Fair Game when you have to factor in Elucia as well, and Shaxy, his Spidey senses I think should maybe be tingling here because a minion has been drawn off of the Insight, sorry, yeah, I forgot the name of the card. And it hasn't been played yet, and it was corrupted, so it's only going to cost less mana.
Fair enough. Shaxy starting with a Pexis because if he gets any spell damage, then, or for example, Mozaki, then you want to go devolving after.
Yeah, true.
But the Fireball's a little bit short now, so this might be Ring Toss instead to just deny the worst case, which is Apotheosis. Netherwind. Oh, he doesn't even get the option for Rigged Fair Game. But Oasis ally, I guess?
Probably Oasis. I'm thinking about Mirror Entity. Again, this isn't the giant version of Priest,
right.
Against which Mirror Entity is much more powerful, but you still have to consider Mirror Entity. We're in the late game now, and a legendary minion has been found. You know, the card that was drawn off of the Insight could very well have been a big legendary like Ysera instead.
Very fair. TIZS actually got... he generated a taunt off of the Netherwind portal, which means that because TIZS didn't attack face, he doesn't have the option to just like not have to play a buff spell and then test for Rig Fair Game that way. Although in retrospect, because he's attacking into a minion, he now has full information. This is a very difficult turn to parse. The way that it ended up is that he's still just going to Lucia because he's just trying to get rid of whatever cards Shaxy has now. And I'm not really sure I'm on board with this because then Shaxy gets to Alakir.
Right. Alakir still has charge, right? They didn't change that in the recent patch. It got buffed, right? It's a 3/6 now and not a 3/5. And I mean, most importantly, that's 6 damage to face. That makes up for the fireball that he loses handsomely.
Or is it even the Fireball? Does TIZS want to dump the Ring Toss instead?
I think I liked the Fireball probably in the end. He's getting pretty scarily low.
That's fair.
But, I mean, now, Alakir Shadow of Death is insane, right?
What to do?
Yes. You can even VT the Elucia to preserve the Divine Shield on Alakir.
Good point.
Well, he will know that TIZS immediately then can just Ysera dream it back into the hand. But is that a disaster? He has charge again.
Right.
It goes back in your hand. So I kind of like the Alakir face even instead of hitting all face and even the 3/5 to the face, just death the 6/6. And Shaxy will know that when this hand returns, TIZS doesn't really have a good answer other than Ysera Dream.
The only other thing to consider is, do you want to dream anything back to your own hand? Like, is Ysera plus Dream good enough? Because you can then steal your opponent's hand. I don't think so, but it's something to consider.
Oh,
apparently it is good enough. Wow, okay.
He dreamed the Elucia. Oh!
Right, yeah, so he gets to steal the hand again.
Okay. This is messing with my mind, as is the name of the card, Elucia Mindrender, but...
Yeah, I mean...
This means that Shaxy will be able to get back, like, the Laughing Sister and the Emerald Drake. That doesn't feel necessarily so powerful, because he won't have mana to get the Alakir, which I felt was the best thing he could have gotten there.
Right, yeah. It does, of course, mean that he gets a 4/12 body, which in its own right is kind of difficult to deal with, but, I mean, even having said that, he knows that just straight up Alakir alone, with the board, obviously, can wrap it up.
It's a big deal that Shaxy got the immediate Nightmare damage, though.
Yep, that's true.
I do think this still ends up being Alakir. And just double trade into Ysera with the 6/6. He can push the 4 to the face and either Laughing Sister or Hero Power face, but this is Mage on a top deck for lethal, so it's gotta be Hero Power face.
Yeah, absolutely no two ways around it.
Ooh.
Okay.
So this is not the Elucia turn anymore because you don't want to give TIZS the Spring Water to dump more stuff.
Yeah, no way.
Oh, this combustion's quite strong.
That's pretty good. It clears off some of the damage at least. double flow as well, and maybe one flow and ring toss. Like, the problem now isn't the fact that they can use a Lucia to steal your rigged fair game. It's just the fact that they're going to attack you every turn. You're not going to get a proc for ages.
Right.
What to do?
In fact, after Shaxy drew that first Spring Water, I was thinking he might start with Flow.
Oh, yeah, good point.
I guess it wouldn't have made that much of a difference for this turn because he can still spend his mana on the majority of stuff.
Time runs out on me.
But he can't now get down both Flow with the Combustion. Okay. Perhaps because Shaxy was intending to Elucia after all, he just didn't want to play the Flows for TIZS to, like, get more benefit off of the immediate next turn.
So he's just trying to guarantee himself a proc with rigged fair game, is this plan? Obviously that sounds good, but there's a few chances here for TIZS to just hit burn damage, right? Because he's playing with Shaxy's deck. There's still Mask of Cthulhu, 2 Ruined Orbs in there as well, in addition to a bunch of draw.
This is already the strangest Mage versus Priest game I've
It's
seen.
really weird.
Because he stole an Elucia. And also, TIZS might be getting hit in the head with a 9-1 in 2 turns time. No, probably not.
Wait, did he just not know the interaction? Because he just drew cards for TIZS.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I wasn't 100% sure myself, but I just kind of assumed that Shaxy would know, because that is a disaster.
Yeah, I am thoroughly mind-rended, but thinking about it, yeah, it kind of does work that way, right? Because just on the turn...
Yeah.
Okay, when the turn ends, whoever's hand you're on, that's the one that's going to draw. Shaxy's like, yeah, dum-dum, is what he's telling himself.
Yeah. I mean, shame on me for not having picked up on it beforehand, but like, that is the way it works, right? Start of turn effects go before the card draw. Now he's just losing, it feels like, right? Surely TIZS can find a way to stabilize his health total.
Although, to be fair, there's not actually that much into his hand, especially now that Shaxy's taken his trade. Apotheosis doesn't have a target. Renew's huge, though. And at worst, he can Hysteria into Condemn to get rid of the 9-1 as well.
Yeah. He just needs to be thinking about if there's any way that he can get the immediate heal off of Apo on his Emerald Drake, because you definitely want to at least consider that.
The Fortitude as well is super cheap right now.
Or is it of a Soul Mirror? Do you want the Prime in your own deck that much? You also get a 9-1, which is not much, but something to consider.
Reasonable, but I think TIZZ's biggest fear right now is Mask of Cthulhu.
Right.
Which there's still 1 in Shaxy's deck, and a 9-1 does a whole load of nothing to kind of stave that off. So I'm more interested in like getting the clear and then ending with health on board.
That's fair.
Okay, looks like he's not going to go for the clear at all because...
What is happening?
Okay. I think what happened here was that TIZS was thinking about the Hysteria order, but then, like, if you play spells first, then you don't get the cheap Power Word Fortitude, and then he kind of brain farted on the 9-1 being on board after that, so he just decided to leave it on board.
So 7 and 6 is 13. He only needs 4 of these to go face, and he wins. But he just has double Ruined Orb instead to guarantee the lethal. That's just it, Gia.
Oh my god, what happened here, Darren? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Man, Gia, we're going back to our roots in APAC here. Token Druid mirrors that last 3 seconds, throwing the game back and forth at the end of these long drawn out games. That did not feel like it from either side, I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think they know it.
Okay. To be fair, I completely blanked on Shaxy trying to do the rigged fair game thing because Mage playing Elucia messes with everybody's head, I think it's fair to say. I want to go back and look at TIZZ's turn, because what he was doing, I think, was trying to set it up such that he could get both the Hysteria and the Apotheosis down, and then the Condemn as well. And then he wanted the power word Fortitude so that the Apotheosis would heal him for even more. Problem with that is there was just not enough mana to do some of it. So I think the turn was supposed to be just not Apotheosis. It was something like Hysteria, Condemn, and then just Emerald Drake, and then you hope that sticks and try to do the Apotheosis powered Fortitude the next turn. But yeah, it was a case of probably getting overly greedy with the healing and missing on the fact that there was a death rattle on this 3-2.
Yeah, the kind of game that you just want to, as a player, immediately forget about, to be perfectly honest. You want to put that out of your mind, just say for Shaxy, okay, I got the win, that's all that matters, let's go on to game 2 and try and get another one. And for TIZZ on the other side, you say, right, you know what, maybe that was winnable, but we don't care. We don't think about that. We just move on to the next game with as clear of a headspace as possible. Because again, for either player, this is still very winnable. I would argue that the mage is still favored against the priest if you are playing as best as possible, especially when the mage will get to switch onto an anti-priest build here if TIZZ wishes to do so, or if Shaxy wishes to do so.
Yes, and to be fair, we did see from Alutemu yesterday running Cthulhu in his anti-priest mage list. I think he tweeted out that he kind of regretted it and thought it was garbage because he kind of took the Cthulhu list without testing it, and it turns out he thought that just running the no clunky cards list, even though you have less total burn in the deck, your average time to get lethal is probably a bit lower in just the primary. And so for Shaxy, his what looks like anti-priest list is not running Cthulhu, but instead just a natural rig fair game and 2 Wildfire, which I have just never seen in action versus priest.
And you are never going to see it in action against priest, because similarly to yesterday, he's just not switching. He's sticking on that primary once again. I don't know if he... like, maybe the Wildfire is like for Warlock, if I was to guess. Like, if it's not for priest, what is it there for? Or maybe you need it against Giants Priest because they have a bit more healing. I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with any reason, because it does look like, once again, he is just sticking on the primary, which, again, I am okay with in Specialist. Very, very often, as we have seen, players do just make their decks worse by switching over.
I agree. And Shaxy already had a run-in with rigged fair games, so I don't blame him for wanting to go for a list that is naturally running the card. It's another game with no early flow, but that is a high-value font of power, which you always want to see against priest, in my opinion.
Snap Malagos there from TIZZ. Honestly, I was kind of wondering if that would be a Nozdormu, kind of similarly to what we saw from Alan yesterday, just because it could have come down the turn after Ogremancer to keep the pressure rolling turn after turn. But I definitely don't hate it. This is kind of the more standard option.
Crossroads for Shaxy, because that was a potential just Netherwind portal turn. Didn't look too awful, and he could just say, I don't actually need to draw that much with this hand, because he had this Aegwin into Jandis curve. But going for the draw is kind of the point of the deck when you don't get pot of power anyway, and he does hit now the Incanter's Flow.
I think I'm looking at Shadow of Death here. There's a reasonable chance that they got something that you would like to death off of the Font of Power. Or, of course, just a Pexus Blast. You'd like an answer to that as well. And the rest, not really too useful in the matchup.
I guess there's some argument for Wave of Apathy for a similar reason. Like, if you have a board state where you would rather develop a minion and have that 1 mana extra for flexibility. But because it sounds so niche already as I'm trying to say it, sure, go ahead. Shadow Word Death looks good. This turn for Shaxy, it kind of sucks that if he wants to kill the Scorpion, he cannot play Incanter's Flow. Because it definitely looks like he wants to go for Apexis or Aegwin next turn.
It does actually look like he's deviating. Again, this is the interesting thing, because we have to consider exactly Coin Ogremancer as the expected, like, not even worst case, because even though that is the worst thing that can happen to Shaxy, it's not that unlikely to happen, in which case just playing Aegwin onto the board is kind of the best thing he can do. And if the Scorpid is there, that plan just doesn't exist. The Scorpid trades in instantly. And so with this plan, loses the Incantus flow, so it makes his late game a lot weaker, obviously. But Aegwin into Jandice is very, very good against exactly Ogremancer, and everything I just said is complete nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange, right? Because if he's planning on going for Incantor Slow alongside the Ruined Orb, I'd have to imagine the Rune Orb maybe goes not into the minion, but okay, to be fair, he has double combustion. But again, like you said, this is very bad into Ogremancer because now the Scorpid is threatening. So much that it might be a Pexus Blast into the Scorpid, but I hate every fiber of my being as I say that.
Oh, yeah. I hate you too when you say that, Gia. That is just friendship-ending words right there. But it might be correct.
The worst thing is that if you go combustion on the Scorpid, it doesn't even like roll over onto the Ogremancer.
Yeah.
The 2/2 gets in the way. Just drawing for devolving exactly, I'd have to imagine.
Brain freeze combustion? Like,
yeah, on the Ogremancer.
Clear the Ogremancer, yeah.
He has to. He's gotta bite the bullet in these situations.
Super expensive, but he got the job done one way or another.
Okay, it's devolving. And he had discovered an additional combustion, so that's kind of a way to deal with these 2/2s, but it's so premium for TIZS, right? You don't even necessarily expect to get more board presence, let alone delete essentially 2 turns from the mage. And he just ripped an Ogremancer. The devolving is kind of hard to snipe as well now, because by the time he plays one, there will be 4 minions on the board.
Yeah, you could start combustion and then it's only 2 minions. Like if you go combustion on the middle 2/2, sorry, then obviously a new one spawns, you clear them all off and you're very likely to get rid of the Ogremancer at that point.
Yep, and he's going with the 0 cost as well, so he can fit in combustion to hopefully deal with whatever is left. Okay, I was so scared. Oh, almost a disaster. That's still a very good minion for TIZS in terms of stats. The devolving only removed 1 health from the Ogremancer. Actually so far behind, and TIZS is lumbering closer and closer to the Malagos turn.
He is, and once again here we know what the secret is, because it's the one natural copy in the deck, and TIZS could actually have just gone triple minion there. I wouldn't have hated that, but he does at this point, I believe, know that it is still the Flame Strike list, because he has realized that with the combustions that Shaxy has not switched over to his tertiary, because the players are not notified if their opponent has switched or not. And so going for triple 2-drop there was maybe a little weak to Flame Strike, so I don't mind this.
Yeah, looks really strong. A lot of the time, if you just have a target to Apotheosis, you take it in this matchup, because you expect that at some point, even if you don't get the immediate healing, Mage can deal with it. The only exception is for Samuro a bit later on. Steward needs value. He's just lost so much value from having to deal with those Ogremancers, and another Apexis sent into a minion here.
Okay, clears the board at least, so he's not. He will have time to make use of that value. Is the big takeaway here.
Right.
As another Draconic Studies is not half bad, and neither is a Holy Smite as well.
Yeah, this is just great for TIZS. He's able to get down the Ooze as well and delete some cards from the hand, make room for the Malagos coming next turn. So we could see Combustion plus, I guess, Aegwin for more stats immediately.
That's what I'm looking at. You just want any chance that you can to stick that on the board and then go for Mask of Cthulhu. Like, the one argument I would hear against that is that you still have 2 Cram Sessions in the deck, and you would really love to couple those 2 cards together.
Wildfire. I was actually looking at Flame Strike here because I feel like Shaxy's gotten that far behind in the matchup. But if he's not going to combust this turn and prioritize the rigged fair game, then I guess combustion and Flame Strike is a bit redundant.
Yeah, rigged fair game and mirror entity. I really like the entity pick there for sure.
Oh, and it depends on whether TIZS wants to take the bait, but he has taken a cheap enough dragon now that he can test with Venomous Scarpid.
Could test with the Scorpion, but he could also just throw it down and then Shadow Word Death it immediately. He can even test... I mean, well, sorry, he's tested for Counterspell now, right? So he knows that that would be safe.
That's true.
But this is fine.
Another palm reading.
Oh, yeah.
Priest's main value engine is that one card right now.
He really doesn't want to play it.
Flash heal. Not playing the dragon here feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. He's ending up putting quite a bit of mana, and this is a window where he knows like the entity's already dealt with.
You don't break the
Yeah, like it's not like he dealt with the steward with the leftover mana he had available. He just developed a lot less stats.
And now this is a pretty clean Jandis combustion turn. Shaxy starting with the Jandis because he can get Mazaki. Illusion on the 5/5, I suppose, to play a bit better around Hysteria.
Sure.
And Shadow Word Death, incidentally.
Yeah, I mean, as always, the argument is like, well, if you're going to do that, then you may as well go one step further and go for the bluff. It's so hard to say what the correct outcome is here. So either one, I think, is fine.
Okay.
He knows it's not Oasis ally as well at this point. Which
Still be a rigged fair game. I think that's TIZS' biggest fear.
I think it's could only be rigged fair game at this point as well. He's tested for everything else.
And in that case, because he cannot like deny it this turn no matter what he does, unless the Swashbuckler gives him something insane, you just play your biggest threat and make it such that if Shaxy gets a lot of cards, at least you have a minion in the way.
There's nothing you can get, is he? Like, I guess technically there are chances from a Swashbuckler to deny it, but that doesn't feel quite worth it. As there it is for Shaxy. He finally gets a rigged fair game to draw himself cards, and it is a big deal. This is still very winnable for him, despite a disastrous mid-game.
He is just drawing the deck now, and he still has the Devolving to deal with the Malagos. The Aegwin gets him 3 draws off of Cram Session. He will have mana to still go Refreshing Spring Water after the Encounter Slow Aegwin Cram Session.
You just got to go. At this point, like you could very well be spending your entire turn playing cards. You need that time.
Yes. The goal is to be able to get the Fireball / Apexis Blast in the face with Aegwin. What? That's just in the better anti-mage priest list, in my opinion. Okay, he'll likely be able to kill it with Brain Freeze and other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just funny. Deck is drawn, mana is regenerated, but time is running out.
He's got to go right now. Brain Freeze does 5. Even with spell damage, it's only going to do up to 6.
He has 1 more Brain Freeze in the deck, and he's very likely to get it off of the Cram Session. Oh, he's got to go. He's got to go.
Yep, let's go.
He's not playing the Lab Partner? Okay, I guess you don't need it if you're not going to play Fireballs this turn, and Brain Freeze will still get it there. But did he fit in that last Brain Freeze? He did not. That's potentially huge.
That's what we're talking about, Gia. You have to start these mage turns sooner. You don't hit rank 2 legend by roping out the Brain Freeze.
That's right, Derek. Rank 2 legend. Happy emoji with a tear. Okay, well, TIZS will be happy he picked up the Shadow Word Death. That can deal with the Aegwin. The problem is, actually, it's not really a problem, right? He has tons of health, and so all he needs to do is be very, very careful here into Mask of Cthulhu, which I would assume just means you play the most stats you can this turn. Feast on the Mage Scribe, which then heals back up. Really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's actually 1 mana off that at this point.
Oh, sorry, because of the death first.
Yeah, but I mean, there's still other very strong plays you could go for. I do think you do take the time to play Power Word Feast now. It's just a lot of extra health you're putting on the board, whereas the Nozdormu can come down at any point.
I agree. This one's conditional. He's not seen either Mask yet. He has seen both Devolving Missiles, which is very big. Alright. TIZS has set up the barricade of minions, but the Flame Strike plus Lab Partner plus Mask.
Yeah, plus Brain Freeze as well, right? Like,
oh yes, that's huge.
Only leaves 1 health. Yeah, that's huge. You take that every day.
Yeah. So it's still just the 10 points from Mask to the face. This last font also very relevant if he hits any spell damage. Those are kind of whiffs.
Yeah, not great. Not great. There's only 1 play on this turn. It's now just straight up, very simple. Does TIZS have enough healing to outlast all of this? It's going to be incredibly difficult for Shaxy to build board control, so it's just about the burn plan.
Illusion though!
Which, well, that was actually guaranteed from the Sightless Watcher on the previous turn. He picked that, which I think was a pretty good option. And it is huge.
He knows about the fireballs in hand at this point, or like at worst one of them is the last card, and at worst one of them costs 3, but they both cost 3 and 2 right now.
That's gotta just be game, right? Even if he goes Nozdormu Apotheosis or Raised Dead into like the perfect cards, I can't even think what he could get that would pull him back.
Yeah, I mean, like, TIZS might not be able to close the game because Shaxy will be able to play a bunch of stuff, but the fact that there's Varden returning to TIZS' hand potentially can even just stop the Nozdormu. But TIZS is not playing both fireballs. I'm very surprised by that.
Yeah, he wants Ice Barrier instead of just... Okay, he draws his opponent closer to fatigue. Sure.
I guess, sure.
I mean, if you have the 1 mana left over at that point, then you may as well.
Not quite what was planned.
Yeah, not quite what was planned. I agree.
Yeah.
I think the second fireball just seemed better to throw away. But to be fair, getting secrets now makes it such that Shaxy doesn't want to just drop Nozdormu. Can go... Lab Partner, Sethic.
Niru? Oh, no, wait, but he... Oh, no. He's giving this to his opponent, but he wants it with his burned deck at this point. Niru is almost so sick here.
This is such a weird interaction.
I mean, like, technically, his deck is empty. If we want to get philosophical with Niru here, you could argue that it should activate. It won't, obviously, but I feel like there's a court battle to be won here.
Schrodinger's Niru. As long as he plays not Nozdormu in case this is Mirror Entity, I think it's fine. Then he can snipe one of those things.
Okay.
Might run.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he doesn't want to proc Netherwind is what he's thinking about by not playing spells, but now he has to just go for it, obviously. Didn't deny the Apotheosis in the end. And, I mean, just Hysteria alone, I think. Well, so I was going to say it wins the game on the spot. It doesn't, because there is still Fireball, Apexis, and Mask of Cthulhu in Shaxy's hand. There's a lot of burn. But I still struggle to see it getting there.
I agree. Wow, he can even do a Sethic train this turn if he wants with this other Holy Smite. I think the optimization TIZS is thinking about is whether he can fit in immediate healing with Apotheosis this turn with Hysteria somehow, but I don't think the mana's there.
Must consider.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like you really need to. You can just go Hysteria plus Niru, but yeah, he's taking it while he can, I guess.
The mana is there if you take Power Word Feast, which is, alright, absolutely fine.
It says explode!
To be fair, this was the play that might have cost TIZS the game last game.
Yeah.
Trying to fit in the Hysteria Apotheosis, but he gets it right this time. Perfect redemption, and now for Shaxy, it is just a prayer.
Yeah, he's realizing it has to come through killing off this Alucia, because even if it's not necessarily a board control fight, you can't be all that healing every turn. But Mazaki is the best minion, pretty much, that you could generate here.
But Hysteria, once again, will lock out this game.
Yeah, doesn't even want to see what Trick Totem has to offer here, as I think some players may have done. You never know, it could have given him the dream out, but it's not going to be the case here. And it is TIZS equalizing the series, Gia, one of the closer matchups in the game at the moment. And again, a bit of a shaky one, a bit of a rocky road to get there, but TIZS did get the job done in the end.
Right. What we're seeing from both games so far is just the power of Ogremmancer, because TIZS has managed to land it every single time on a turn where Shaxy was not ahead on board. TIZS sets it up such that the turn before coin Ogremmancer, he has a big Sethek on board, or even just a Scorpid to prevent Shaxy from just playing a Pexis Blast. And that means that the Ogremmancer comes down unchallenged, and it deletes another turn of Shaxy, who would ideally want to be just drawing or developing Font of Power minions.
I mean, that's a good point. He has literally gone coin Ogremmancer into Ogremmancer twice. 2 games in a row, which is like literally the best thing that you can do against the mage. So honestly, the fact that he's 1-1 here, if anything, speaks well to Shaxy's plan. Because if that doesn't happen, which it is not likely to, again for the 3rd time, Shaxy should be able to get into a decent position in the mid game. Both players are once again sticking on the primary. We're not seeing any Bank Yugi style mind games where you try and lull them into a false sense of security and then switch over to the double wildfire, as I think is probably correct. You want to switch to the best deck for the matchup, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. Shaxy, I'm not sure if he's fully recovered from the health tilt from the first game, but from TIZZ's perspective, I think I've been seeing just nothing but focus ever since he had his own flub on kind of like miscounting the mana to be able to fit in Condemn and Hysteria, or just forgetting about the Death Rattle. I'm still not sure what exactly it was that happened, but that game 2 was pristine from TIZZ, very nicely done. Even though there were opportunities to, for example, get the Nozdormu down earlier, I think he realized he was still in a very good spot to win, as long as he was able to make sure that the board was preventing Mask of Cthulhu from getting too much damage to the face every single turn.
Yeah, I think the one kind of indication of TIZZ's mindset maybe not being perfect is like when he goes for the emotes, oops, that was a mistake, when he messes up. Like, it to me implies a certain level of like embarrassment, or like you're aware of the mistakes that you're making in not the best way. Because again, we give our players a lot of flack when they don't make the perfect plays, but what they're doing here is incredibly difficult. They're playing at the top level with the other best players in the world, or at the very least within their region. And so you know what, even if you are making a mistake, I think you just pretend you didn't. Don't do the emoting, oops, that was a mistake. Just get your head back in the game and keep playing at your absolute peak ability, as Shaxy is most certainly doing here with the Incantus Flow into double Spring Water.
He has finally hit the flow and the goods, and he has this Phoenix, which I think he's right to keep in his back pocket, and you don't need to develop that so soon. Compared to, say, Token Druid or the Mirror, there's no turn where you really want this to specifically wake up. I generally see it as like towards the end game when you accumulated all your burn, you want to cash out on that spell damage, and he has plenty of ways to spend his mana for now. I also want to note that the combustion on a singular Wand Thief, I think, is already just harkening back to his bad experiences with Ogremmancer, so he's just making sure to be, or to have as clear of a board as possible by the time TIZZ could possibly coin it out, and we could see a Pexis Blast onto the minion here because of that.
Yeah, this is what he has been missing. It's not only, obviously, the Incantus Flow and the Spring Waters that have been missing, but just mid-game dominance. By going for a Pexis Blast here, having Devolving Missiles as well, even if there was Coin Ogremmancer, it would still be very deal-withable for Shaxy, and he could turn this around and keep the damage coming in the mid-game, because with that extra chip damage that he can get through, it looks like it's going to be a very, very strong game for Shaxy.
There. Although he may have tunneled a bit on the Ogremancer by sending this face, because he's saying here, all right, if your play is coin Ogremancer, it doesn't make a big deal if the Wand Thief is still on the board, because it doesn't trade well with most Apexis Blast minions. But there's also the threat of buff cards from TIZS, who is naturally running Apotheosis and can discover things from palm reading, as we saw last game. And that means now that TIZS has what looks to be a very simple Apotheosis Holy Smite clear on this. Looks to be.
Does look to be, doesn't it? There we go. Yeah, and he even has reasonable ways to recoup his minion development. Like, literally just going Raise Dead into double Wand Maker again is good in the matchup. A lot of the cards that you're generating are very powerful. Obviously, Renew and Flash Heal being top amongst them, but the rest are not bad either.
Ooh, Raz with Lab Partner is illegal here. I was gonna say, this 4-2 Wand Maker, it was actually such a pain for Shaxy because he didn't have Combustion or Brain Freeze to deal with it, and it was out of range for just a ping. But now he gets a way to deal with it and also redevelops board. If he had not gotten this, I was pretty sure it was gonna be some sort of a Phoenix turn to set up for the Cram session, but this is too premium to give up.
Yeah, it's so sick. And in terms of the clears, Shaxy, obviously, if he had a rank 3 Condemn, would be laughing all the way to the bank here. But without that, are you looking at going for a 2-turn setup? Like, you could just Holy Smite, Holy Nova on this turn, and then set up for the Condemn and Smite next turn with the Sethic?
Yeah, certainly feels something like that. It is kind of miserable, but I'm not seeing alternative options, because even if he goes for some type of just Raise Dead play, the board is immediately dead to Raz and spell damage.
Yeah, the only other, like...
If he's going to be super desperate, we can see Apo Shadow Word Death here.
Oof. Yeah, I don't think that feels quite worth it. Like, I suppose that is a possibility, but the main other thing I was thinking is like Holy Smite, the lab partner. But I think it's more important to, again, get that 2-turn setup. Mage can't heal, so you want to damage them a little bit next turn, finish them off. Damage them this turn, finish them off next turn.
Yeah. Thinking about spending the mana on Holy Smite next turn because he's going to Condemn, but I like holding on to it for the Sethic turn, because next turn it still feels like Sethic with Condemn and the Holy Smite. In the meantime, Shaxy's gonna get a lot of draw. Ooh, powerful
this is
stuff.
Big, yeah.
And set up the Netherwind as well, because this kind of smells like either a Hysteria or a Condemn setup, and the 4/4 tends to survive Condemn. Hysteria, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, it's... Netherwind is tempting, but also the Phoenix is getting very tempting now. You've got Mask of Cthulhu, Runed Orb in hand. Getting that spell damage on turn 8 feels premium.
Very fair. The one thing I didn't expect was for Shaxy to just keep drawing this turn, because I was looking heavily at, if not Phoenix Babbling Book, Netherwind Babbling Book. Okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Wow. I think he really wishes the Phoenix could have come down a bit earlier now, but of course he couldn't have seen the Encounter Slow unless he went for that draw first.
Well, here it is, the plan that he set up for last turn, quite correctly too, in my opinion. And getting another Apotheosis is not bad at all. He really just needs some way to stick the board so that he can make this, get use out of these Apotheoses, because, again, even if he hits Blade Master Samuro, there's not that much of a likelihood there'll be a big board for it to rush into. He needs these minions to stay in play.
And that is a really tall order, because look at the damage in Shaxy's hand. Again, like, not having the Phoenix down a bit earlier makes this all a little bit awkward to navigate, but it's not a bad situation by any means. We could just see, like, Babbling Book, Brain Freeze, Mask is pretty strong this turn, although I still want him to get the Phoenix down and maybe just Brain Freeze the Sethic. He can leave the Wand Maker around.
Yeah, this is the awkward spot, right? Because at first I was going to say absolutely it's the Phoenix turn, which I agree with you. I think it still probably is, because you might need to squeak out a bit more damage. But it's reasonable, I think, at this point to just say you don't even need it, just because you're going to be getting with the average draw so much damage.
Well, fair, but I don't think the Phoenix is there actually for additional damage so much as more draw from the Cram Session. Because at the moment, the card draw is just the singular Cram Session in hand, and I guess sometimes Rig Fair Game, but the Ring Toss is not corrupted, and he doesn't necessarily want to play it just like that. Although, if it is going to be this turn that I was recommending of something with the Phoenix, then he does probably end up on a secret.
Wow, well, TIZS did stick a minion, which honestly I didn't really see happening at the start of this turn. And it's a big deal, because even just a little bit of heal from one of these apotheoses could be the difference maker. It's going to be tight margins for sure.
I believe he also knows this is Netherwind Portal, so he's free to start with Apotheosis, and then if it's a big minion value trade over that. Could also just start with Studies.
I like to think they teach me.
This might even just be double Apo to maximize the healing where he can get it.
I guess actually you can just take Shadow of Death on that now that it's a 5 attack minion. That probably feels more important.
Yeah, you can still weave in Hero Power, which is just kind of the same as playing another Apotheosis, at least for just that turn.
Yeah.
After having seen Shaxy throw out one devolving missiles all willy-nilly like that, I don't know if it gives you information that he probably has another one, so TIZS didn't necessarily want to take the Death Rattle minion.
Yeah. Whew. All right, comes in at the end. Clutch there. And I think this is probably the best way to go about it. Next turn you have obviously Fireball and Apexis Blast, but as you were laying out, also the Cram Session to go with your Phoenix. So the amount of damage you can deal is just ludicrous. Shaxy is so far in the lead now.
Yes, he's also corrupted the Ring Toss, and so even if there is some worst case scenario of like Sethic into a bunch of healings, what? Really? I thought the Cram Session was there because of the Phoenix. Or like, rather the Phoenix was played that turn so he could get the Cram Session.
Right, and even if he's looking for exactly Fireball, it costs 2 mana, right? So he would have still been able to play it with the Cram Session next turn.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit lost now. Well, I think what Shaxy was saying is that he wants to go Fireball, Apexis Blast, Ring Toss, for which he wouldn't have had the mana for Cram Session. But, I mean, I'm not saying that's right, because I think a Cram Session is stronger than a Ring Toss, because your best Ring Toss here is for Rigged Fair Game, which draws you 3 cards the same way a Cram Session would. And he very likely would have just had Lethal if he had held on to the Cram Session, I want to say. Ruined Orb still in the deck.
This could get very funny now, because if there's no better spell to proc than Raise Dead, it could honestly be TIZS just plays Raise Dead and dies here trying to stop the counter spell so that he can play Apotheosis.
Okay, he's gonna heal first. There's nothing better to do with the 2 mana anyway, so avoid the disaster scenario. But this is huge. He gets to heal for also on the Netherwind top. Oh, but that's a Wind Fury. Oh my goodness.
That's 6 damage out of nowhere, but Shaxy's kind of gassed out.
He has no cards! The Cram Session! Oh, Rigged Fair Game, he has cards, but just not this turn. And he can Apo this, Combustion this. His does not have Elucia, let alone a way to deal with the 3-2 without playing super heavily into Mirror Entity.
That Firebird living up to its name, truly fantastic here.
Yeah.
Renew is huge. That's huge.
But 2 secrets again.
You go. You've got to go.
Yeah. Okay, it's a Zyrella turn now, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, Shaxy's gassed out! The Cram Session.
Yeah, I mean, he has chances at lethal here, but they're not especially big ones.
He has 1 more Mask, 1 more Fireball in the deck, so to be fair, this Rigged Fair Game was pretty likely to get him the goods, but now Aegwin, Primordial Studies, Ruined Orb, Brain Freeze, it's just so much stuff.
Yeah.
Aegwin? Does that fit with Ruined Orb? It does.
It fits. Is it I guess it is pretty good. I mean, I was looking at Solarian, of course, just as the cheaper option and to get Prime in your deck, but honestly, what you're suggesting was not crazy.
I mean, going Aegwin Solarian lets him fit in Water Elemental as well, while still getting some spell damage.
Maybe he's going Koldara then, if he's going about it this way.
Okay. Okay, Intellect, the Fireballs. Okay, this Fireball costs 1 now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Time runs out on me.
That's game, right? The second Intellect, that literally has to be game.
Okay.
Whoa.
Oh. Shaxy, you and I all had the same reaction there. Just, whoa.
Yeah, and while I hope Shaxy doesn't physically punish himself too much for that one, you got to go easy on yourself. I will admit that the reaction I cannot say I necessarily agree with, but the sentiment, you have to have some questions after that series. It felt like on both sides, specifically Shaxy, to be honest, towards the end, there were many spots that could have been improved upon with just like some straight up blunders at the start with the Illusia plus rigged fair game combos. And even there, just the fact that he could have given himself a much easier time finding lethal.
Yes. To be fair, it's very difficult to figure out the best timing for the Phoenix because he had a lot of these turns in the middle where he had good tempo options, and he did end up giving up a mask turn by going for the Phoenix, which by that point in the game, I agreed that it was still worth it. But to me, it was just so strange that he decided to cram session because I thought that the whole reason for getting the Phoenix down earlier was to guarantee he hits the bottom of his deck immediately. And if Shaxy had missed on the Rig Fair game, on the second ring toss, we could have been seeing a very different picture there. Although noting that when your Rig Fair game is... Sorry, when ring toss is corrupted, you have like an 80% chance to get one secret that you really want.
It's very, very likely, make no mistake. But it's not only that. If he hadn't got... Fantastic Firebird, basically a 6-attack 4-drop, then he may well have just lost at that point, because if it had died straight away, you lose 6 damage, and then, you know, everything could have gone wrong. But it doesn't matter. Shaxy is able to take the win. Kind of what I was expecting in the Mage versus Priest matchup, especially when there's not a specifically anti-Mage build coming in from TIZS. But very nicely done from Shaxy, at least in that mid-game. I think the way that he piloted things to play around the Ogremancer was probably a correct way to do things, and he did get a lot of chip damage in that made things a lot easier, even if you factor in some questionable plays at the end.